Hello and welcome. I'm your host, William Liu. This is the Raptors Reaction Podcast on the Hello and Welcome Podcast presented by Betway. Make sure to hit the QR code below for all your sports betting needs. And if you're feeling great after this one, I can't blame you because the Raptors take down the Boston Celtics by a score of 119 to 118 in preseason action in their lone game here at Scotiabank Arena. And you might ask, why am I excited for a preseason win? Well, first off, as far as preseason wins go, this is about as good as it gets because it's not just about the result here. The win is nice. Obviously, it's nice to say that they win. It's nice for the team to sort of exact a measure of revenge. Obviously, the loss to the Celtics in Boston earlier last weekend, and, it left a bad taste in your mouth considering the fact that they got down by 30 in the first half. But, of course, they clawed back, and then this one, it was the Raptors' turn to dominate. I mean, the Raptors came out tonight scoring 46 points in the first quarter against the Boston Celtics. Now, I'm not going to tell you that the Boston Celtics were super sharp. I wouldn't say that they were playing the most dedicated defense. But 46 points is 46 points. Like, you score 46 points in any context, I'd be impressed. And the Raptors tonight did an amazing job of bouncing back. This is despite the fact that Boston had all the guys that they rested. Jason Tatum back in the lineup. Al Horford back in the lineup. Derek White back in the lineup. Jaylen Brown back in the lineup. And of course, Peyton Pritchard, the Raptor killer, ultimately ends up starting this game, and he deserved to because, damn, he was awesome in the first game in Boston. But despite all those Celtics players, especially the ones that you recognize from the championship-winning team coming back, it was the Raptors who came out super dominant. I mean, what Scottie Barnes and Gradey Dick did tonight overall was eye-opening. It's not just an overreaction to a preseason game. It's the fact that you can see what they're capable of. Like, as much as Gradey had an underwhelming performance against Boston the other game and he got hunted defensively, I mean, he was so sharp today. He came out and he was 3 of 3 from 3. Scottie Barnes came out 3 of 3 from 3. The fact that they were at one point 6 of 6 to start the game. Scottie finishes with 26 points, 9 rebounds, 10 assists. 30 minutes played, was awesome. Honestly, best player on the court for a lot of the game. Right there with Tatum. And this is a game where Tatum actually shot the three pretty well. But I thought Scottie did more overall in this game. And then Gradey was right there with anybody else in terms of the best scorer in the game. Because he came out tonight, 27 points for Gradey, 12 of 21 from the field, 3 of 8 from 3, 6 rebounds. Those two came out and they set the tone. Of course, the rest of the starting lineup played well too. I thought Davion did a good job distributing. He finished with 10 assists tonight, which is his preseason high so far. I thought Ochai Agbaji did a decent job. He had the toughest assignment having to guard Jaylen Brown, and Jaylen Brown's physicality overwhelmed him at times. He has to take a couple fouls, but the whole starting lineup came out strong. I mean, 46 points. And, of course, there's a measure of that where it's like guys were hot. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just 46 points for the sake of 46 points. It's also the fact that, like, Scottie was really hot to start the game, and he was pulling for 3, and he was looking great on that front. Or, like, Gradey was making a lot of shots. But it was also the way that they played. Number one, we'll start with Gradey because we'll get to Scottie in a bit. I think for Gradey, the number one thing I saw from him today was just how confident and aggressive he was. I think especially when they were playing in transition, and Gradey was – like, he was the guy running the fastest. You know what I mean? Like, when you think of these guys who are shooters, right, you get yourself open by being the best conditioned and also by running the hardest. You outrun your opponents. You get to the spots before they can get to you. And it's something where you look at, like, a J.J. Redick in the past, right, before he was a podcaster turned coach. He was a guy who would run circles around you. And, like, obviously Steph is, incredible guy in terms of just the conditioning. But, like, even put aside those two all-time great three-point shooters, like, you saw Gradey tonight sprint to the corners over and over again, leak out in transition, and when he was in transition, he was very confident. He was very willing to take on guys. I mean, there were moments where there's one play where him and Scottie were on a fast break together, and Jason Tatum was the last man back, and he decides, you know what, I'm just going to sit with Scottie. I'm going to deny the pass with Scottie, and I'm going to challenge last second at the rim, which is probably a good call, except for the fact that Grady's like, all right, cool. You know what? You want to do that? That's cool with me. I'll literally just take it all the way in, and I'll finish over the top of you. He is, after all, still 6'8", and, like, fairly athletic. So he's finishing on that front. There's another play where he stole the ball off Derek White, took it the whole way, one-on-one against Tatum at the rim, and he finished through contact with the soft touch, finger roll off the glass, to high off the glass to bounce in. I mean, there was stuff here today from Gradey that you just genuinely did not see from him in year one. And if you did, it was in very limited doses. And, yeah, I mean, I just thought today it was so impressive watching how aggressive Scotty was. There was also, and this happened at least 3 times, where him and Scotty worked together on a back cut, where Gradey would just, like, cut super hard to the rim, and the pass would be there, confidently delivered. He'd catch it, finish midair. One thing with Gradey that's really impressive, and probably the most impressive one, was actually Jakob. Jakob had the ball in the post. Gradey was on the strong side, so he was on the same side as Jakob. And Gradey curled all the way around, ran a circle around Jakob to get back to the rim, and Jakob served them with the pass. The defense was already sitting with Gradey. The only place that Gradey could catch it is just slightly ahead and leading him away from the basket. But he sort of jumped midair, caught it, and just kind of like tapped it at the backboard, and it bounced in. Like, that kind of dexterity, that kind of mid-air creativity, that's something Gradey does have. That's something where, especially last season, you saw more of it coming out of the corners, where he would pump fake, attack a closeout, and then sort of go for reverse layups. Sometimes he would even go for windmill reverse layups. It's very rare because he really obviously didn't play that much last season until the end, but there's an in-air dexterity with Gradey that I think is actually really impressive. But I also thought he actually just showcased his regular athleticism over the course of the game. I think he showcased his speed. And, of course, the three-point shooting. He was super confident. You notice one thing with Gradey right now is he is not afraid to get those shots up. Last game, he got up, 18 shots in Boston, and he obviously was super cold in the first half, ended up coming out hot, ended up hitting 4 threes in the third quarter. This one, he was super aggressive from the start, was hot from the start, and he just remained that throughout. I mean, you saw that. You saw the mid-range pull-up. He knocked down 2 of those as well, which is a good counter for when guys catch him running out towards the three-point line. He can sort of take 1 dribble, maybe even 2 hard dribbles, and then just pound, stop, and then go up for the little fade. He's got a great touch on those. It seems like he's very confident, especially from the mid-range. And, yeah, it's just a good balance. It's all about reading, right? Because sometimes he can go all the way and curl all the way to the basket. Sometimes he can take the mid-range shot. Sometimes he could just catch and shoot for 3 or even sidestep for 3. All those things are options to him. It's just a matter of how much he reads it and, quite frankly, how confident he is. And that's the one thing with Gradey is, even when he was struggling last season, you don't question how confident of a person Gradey Dick really is. He's a guy who really is, not afraid to shoot. He's not afraid to attack, and even when things don't go his way, there's a mental toughness to say he's going to get through it. That's what I liked about the last game against Boston. You know what, first half, he was getting cooked as much as anybody. Literally the worst player in the rotation in the first half of the Raptors on Sunday when they lost to Boston. He comes on that third quarter, he bangs 4 threes, and just like he was, red hot or something. Right? I love that. You need to have a guy like Gradey who is a shooter with no conscience, and he did that tonight. So salute to Gradey. Props to him. Now, Scottie Barnes, who finished with 26 points, 9 rebounds, 10 assists, and a block. I think you could certainly look at the way he was hot to start the game, knocking down threes. I think he hit 4 threes in the first quarter. Then the last play before he was subbed out, he knew that Dark was going to call a timeout. He knew he was going to put in the third stringers. It is still preseason after all. He knew that this was his last shot, and he just pulled up from 3 in transition, knocked it down, hit the Dennis Schroeder freeze celebration, afterwards as the whole bench sort of embraced him in the timeout. Boston called timeout. I think that put the Raptors up 10, or something. But he was hot throughout. That was good. I like that there were moments where he was playing bully ball. And that, to me, is my favorite thing about Scotty on offense, is the bully ball. What Scotty has is not necessarily the quick twitch. He's not going to shake you side to side and then, get that kind of separation. That's not like an AI kind of situation. What Scotty has is the big body and the strength to bang. When he gets to a spot, he can advance that position. So he got, for example, Baylor Shireman, all right, who's not a small guy. He's 6'5", 6'6", even though he's a rookie, I think he's an older rookie. He's more, solidly built, but still not a guy as big as Scotty. So when Scotty gets him the post, he just turns him around, takes 1 or 2 hard dribbles and just bodies him out the way and gets in for a little layup, right, off the glass, Or when Scotty was really, really flowing, there was a play where him and Jaylen Brown, he had the ball. Jaylen Brown was guarding him, and he backed down Jaylen Brown, hit him with a little chicken wing push-off, which, whatever. They call it, you don't call it, whatever. A lot of times stars definitely don't get called for push-offs. I mean, you look at Giannis's highlight reel or LeBron's highlight reel, whatever, right? The whole point is it's a part of the game. And It's Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown's strong. Jaylen Brown is super strong. Like, you know what I mean? And he pushed Jaylen Brown out the way, and he just calmly knocked down a short, like, 12, 13-foot mid-range jumper. You know, like, dare I say, the type of shot that Kawhi would have specialized in hitting. You know what I mean? Like, that type of strength. There's another shot where he had the ball kind of in the post. He was facing up. He called for the screen from Jakob. So you got like a really, really deep, screen. It's not even necessarily a pick and roll because there's no space to roll into. He just wanted that screen so that he can lift to the top around the free throw line area, coming off, Jakob's screen and just pull up from the mid-range. It's pretty well contested by the Celtics, pretty well guarded. And honestly, it's a mid-range pull-up, but he knocked it down. The stuff there was like, you can't tell me the type of shots he was taking versus the type of shots that Jaylen Brown was taking versus the type of shots that Jason Tatum was taking. They were roughly in the same mold. Right? And that, to me, is just like Scottie's confidence. We've seen sort of like the quieter performances. The first game against Washington, I said, he basically played 5 good minutes, and the rest of it was kind of, whatever. And he looked really tired. And then the Boston game, he came out really slow, just like the whole team, dragged the whole team down, because if he doesn't lead, no one else will. Then in the third quarter, he comes out, and he was super aggressive, and I thought he played a really good third quarter. But that's not a whole game. Today, I thought he played a really good game. And this is the part that I was most excited from with Scottie Barnes tonight. There was a play in the fourth quarter where he was trying to push the ball on the fast break. He saw, I think, Ochai open in the corner before the Celtics could sort of get back to him. He threw the advance pass to Ochai, and the ball may or may not have been tipped by Jason Tatum on the sort of like jumping the passing lane, right? And the referee clearly called it off of Scottie, so that was a turnover going to the Boston Celtics. Scottie was upset, so he was like, jumping up and down, calling for the replay, looking at Darko. Obviously, Darko hadn't used his challenge at that point. He still had his timeouts. All that kind of stuff was good. Now, the Celtics were really smart because what they did was quick inbound. They got the ball quickly back from the referee and then, got the ball back in play. Darko didn't actually challenge it, which I would have loved to seen that challenge because I do think that there was a really good chance that the ball was indeed tipped. But the part that I didn't like was that Scottie was so engrossed in the idea to challenge it and so engrossed in the idea that it was a bad call that he didn't get back on defense. And instead, the Celtics quick inbounded, got it to Derek White, who would have been Scottie's man, and Derek White confidently knocked down a quick-fire 3. And that's when the Raptors took timeout. So at that point, the Raptors were up 5. They were in control the whole night. They were leading. The Celtics did come back. They closed the gap. Raptors were up 20, and then the Celtics came right back, but the Raptors went ahead and whatever. But it was kind of like a, dangerous lead, like kind of like 5 to 8 points type of deal. So Raptors are up 8. That play happens, and instead the Celtics get a quick-fire 3, and all of a sudden they get to set their defense. Darko calls a timeout just like that. And I was wondering, okay, what is going to be the response coming out of this timeout? Because all this talk about leadership, all this talk about growth, all this talk, when I asked Masai on Media Day, what do you like more about Scottie this summer? He said seriousness. There's a seriousness to how he's operating. This is what that seriousness looked like. Because coming out of that timeout, Scottie, I forget what they even did on offense, but, whatever. That was fine. On the defensive end, Scottie took on the assignment against Jason Tatum, and he is locking him up. He is pressed up into him. He is doing everything he can to get into his body. He is making the contest. I don't think Tatum even got a shot off. I think, generally speaking, like, that is what you want to see from him. And he was locked in defensively, and I think they forced a shot clock violation that possession, and that kind of fired up the team. And then next play down, he locked up Tatum again. And then on the other end, Scottie started, getting back into a good rhythm offensively. He started, actually there was one play that he made that was real sloppy afterwards too. He gave up the 3 from White, and then the next play down, almost sort of like on tilt, he dribbled it up into a dribble handoff and had so much momentum with him that he bumped over Jason Tatum. Kind of a play that's kind of sloppy, right? A guy like him, he should know how to do a dribble handoff without being overzealous. He's not a rookie. But again, the way he locked back in, the way he just like focused on the task, the way that he just took on Tatum and like really, really handled it on defense, that's what I want to see. There's a competitive toughness that's like, you know what? We've all had those moments where it's like a thing doesn't go your way. You feel this moment of injustice. Does it spiral for you? And I loved it. Like, we've seen Scottie fade in and out of games in the past. That was sort of the main thing with him. You see him today, he locked back in after about a minute. So, like, that was really awesome to see. And hopefully you don't get to hear too much of this background noise because you never know what's going to happen at Scotiabank. They are doing a post-game event here. But I thought Scottie did excellent. And just in general, though, I mean, the fact that he had 26 points, 9 rebounds, 10 assists, that was awesome to see. I think beyond that, I think There was just a good game from the other guys too, because everyone else on the team is mostly playing a role. Even Gradey, as hot as he was today, is not going to be in a regular setting taking 21 shots to lead the team. Obviously, this is a reflection of the fact that you had no Quickly, no RJ Barrett, and other players like Kelly who remain out of the game. Now, I think, number one, with those guys, I actually have some positive news to relay. So I was at the shoot-around earlier today, and what you saw is, well, I guess what I saw was, number one, Emmanuel quickly getting shots up, right? And that was something that pregame, he got a lot of threes up. I guess he still wasn't necessarily playing through contact. He clearly wasn't playing today. But I think there maybe is an outside chance of him potentially returning for Friday and at least getting one preseason game in before the regular season. Regardless, for me, if I had to guess and if I had to bet, I would bet on quickly being available for the home opener, just based on sort of the progress that he's making. That was good. Number two, I saw RJ Barrett, arm not in a sling or anything. Like, he was just getting shots up as well. Now, it wasn't as vigorous of a routine as Quickly. Quickly was doing like a full three-point drill all around the whole thing, and he probably shot for like 20 minutes. RJ was a little bit less, but still it was nice to see RJ on the court. What was always promising was when I was at shoot-around, I got to see Jakob get some shots up as well. And he has yet to be cleared. He's got the same injury as RJ, the little shoulder thing. But I saw him getting lots of shots up and sort of going through, like, maybe not full contact, but again, like, he's going through shooting drills, which has to be a good sign for a guy with the injured shoulder. So hopefully eventually we'll even get to see Jakob Poeltl at some point. For people who don't know, he was the 19th pick for the Toronto Raptors this past draft. But, I mean, ultimately, I think there are good signs in terms of guys coming around the corner. The other thing is, in terms of guys like trying to fight for a role and establish themselves, I want to go through those guys. So number one for me, Ochai Agbaji and Davion Mitchell. Those are the two guys that have been the biggest beneficiaries of the injuries to Emmanuel Quickly, to RJ Barrett, because they've gotten a chance to play extended minutes and also to play in the starting lineups and play against not just the top competition, but also play with the Raptors' best players. For me, Ochai continues to look really promising in terms of his aggressiveness in transition. I know it's not like something to like throw a whole party over, which is like he finished a layup over Luke Cornett, but like that kind of aggressiveness where he's attacking a 7-footer and he's finishing over the top of a 7-footer, that is the type of stuff that you need to see from him. There needs to be an increased aggressiveness. The Raptors have talked so much about him rolling, him playing fast in transition, being aggressive, and touching the paint. He's done a really good job with that. Now, of course, I do want to know if that continues over into the regular season. I don't want this to be some sort of preseason anomaly. But ultimately, I think he's done a really good job of serving his role. Defensively, this is why I liked having him potentially in the mix as a starter, or I wouldn't mind him as an occasional starter, barring there's some injuries, because he comes in, he just takes on the toughest assignments, and he never needs the ball. They never really run offense for Ochai. Maybe in the second unit, he sometimes screens for the ball and stuff, but even that, like, that's not something that it requires too much of, like, orienting the offense around him. He does a good job of getting to the corners. He's either making or missing those, whatever. He really airballed, close to airballing one of them. That was quite open. That wasn't promising. But I like how much he's impacting. Like, you actually notice watching him now in preseason as compared to Summer League, as compared to last season with the Raptors when he joined at the trade deadline. You actually notice that Ochai is an athlete because he's using that athleticism on offense to touch the paint, and then he's making good decisions from there. So for me, he's done a good job. And then defensively, yeah, he guarded Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown, I mean, physicality, he kind of overwhelmed him a couple times. He had to take a couple fouls is what I mean. But, like, it's also Jaylen Brown. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's a guy who was finals or conference finals, MVP or whatever. Like, he's obviously a very, very good player, very strong player as well. So I thought, you know what? Jakob did a really good job. Ochai did a really good job. Sorry, all the background noise is throwing me off. Shout out to Jamal McGlure giving a little speech to, like, roughly 100 kids. That's actually really cool. Hopefully you can still hear this on the pod. The other thing is Davion Mitchell getting an extended run here. And the thing with Davion is, look, I just want him to be able to knock down the three. And today he was 3 of 6 from 3, which for him is a really good scoring night. He's not going to be doing that much else, right? There's not that much, like, mid-range game that he's really getting to. He's more disciplined than that. He's certainly not, especially as the point guard, looking for mid-range jumpers to settle for. He's trying to get his team into the offense. He's mostly, if he's turning the corner, he's got a little bit of quickness to finish at the basket, but he's relatively short. Like, it surprised me standing next to him. Just like he's like no more than 6'1", you know what I mean? Like this is not like a guy with like a little bit of size to sort of finish. Like he's really got to beat his man and be first at the rim to get the layups to drop. The other thing with him too is I think for Davion, it's just the catch and shoot threes, and he's not automatic. That's something they're working on constantly with him after practice. Him and Jamal Shed, they got to continuously work on their catch and shoot threes, because the first guy to really, really nail it is the first guy that's going to get consistent minutes. And right now it's going to be Davion because he's been in the league longer, but I really do think that over the course of the season, it's whoever progresses more and finds more consistency with their catch and shoot threes. I think Davion's okay at it, but like they're both got the same problem. It both looks a little flat, and they're both a little short with it. Having said that, though, I think Davion's done a great job distributing. Again, here, 10 assists tonight, 3 turnovers. I think he just does a really good job of being able to, you know what, like set up his teammates, make the right passes, make the right reads. And I think as long as he does that, that should be enough, so long as he actually plays with scores. So, like, Scotty, Gradey, I guess, like, he's not going to play that much with Emmanuel, but maybe you want to use Emmanuel in a 2-point guard lineup. You make him sort of the off guard. They did a lot in New York, for example. Maybe you could do work with that. Or RJ. I don't mind that style of play. The sort of setups have been really good. And you've also not just seen, like, the safe conservative passes, but you've seen, like, drive and kick, you know, drive and bounce pass in traffic to Jakob. You know, full court bounce passes where he threw one to Gradey that was really, really nice from Davion. So I think, like, what you're getting is, like, exactly what was billed. Not a 3-and-D point guard, mostly like a responsible defense and responsible point guard passing, which, like, I guess is more of a classic traditional style of playing point. But I think, you know, that part works for me, especially as a backup point guard. So I think those two guys both acquitted themselves well. In terms of the guys who are battling for spots, you know, it's interesting because you do have a tough choice. And today I was sitting, you know, at Scotiabank Arena. Just above me is, like, the box for the Raptors executives. And, you know, they're all, like, excited, and they're sort of jumping up and down. They're excited for the game as much as anyone else, which I think is actually kind of adorable. But you could also tell that, like, they're definitely watching very closely which of these guys they're going to have to keep, because you're going to have a tough decision here. You got DJ Carton, who was the Raptors' main source of offense down the stretch. This game became quite close. I know it's third stringers versus third stringers, but it's still a close game. There's excitement in the building. You're still, and of course the competitiveness to try to win no matter what. You know, you throw preseason out the window. Like, these guys are actually trying to make it. These guys are hungry. They're probably hungrier than the starters for both teams, considering those guys already have their money and they know exactly what they're going to do this season. These guys are like, you either make it or you're probably going overseas to Europe if you got a deal lined up there, or you're going overseas somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like, it's really, really serious, and these guys are desperate. And I thought DJ Carton was the primary source of offense. Him getting to the foul line, knocking down a perfect 4-4 in the last minute. It's marginal. I know it doesn't seem like that much. It's not like he was killing the defense either. Some of them were, quite frankly, even a little lucky to get the call. But still, him stepping up and getting 4-4 from the foul line, he made his case for what he can do. You also saw Bruno Fernando, who was there getting big rebounds for the Raptors, and the Raptors ultimately lack size. You know what? Like, you could see potentially him being an option. By the way, DJ Carton threw him a nice little lob pass for an alley-oop. That was quite nice, too. You also saw Jamison Battle, who, for me right now, I would keep Jamison Battle because of the fact that I know the Raptors prioritize guys with multiple skills. They want guys who can defend multiple positions. And Jamison Battle is, like, just okay on defense, I would say. There's one point where Derek White hit him with a jab step, and he literally stumbled and fumbled and went over. So, like, that was obviously not a pleasant sight to see. But it's great to see him shoot. My goodness, is it good to have a three-point specialist that actually knocks it down. With a little bit of size, with a little bit of handle. There's one play where he came off a curl, dribbled, went into the paint at the elbow, and then sort of crossed it behind him and pulled up from the mid-range, no problem. For a guy who's like 6'7", 6'8", not a given, honestly. I thought he was more of a stretch big, but he can handle it a little bit. We saw him make a couple great passes. I thought Darko drew up some really good plays out of the timeout. One of them was Jamison Battle curling to the top of the floor, catching the ball, and then throwing a high-low pass to Bruno, who had cut to the basket for another layup. Like, stuff like that, he was making good reads. And, of course, when he's open, he really will knock that three down. That's something we saw in Summer League, and that's something we're seeing here in preseason. And for me, if I had to keep anybody, I would keep the guy that the Raptors need the most, which is three-point shooting. The size is one thing that does make me nervous, like what happens if the Raptors suffer even one injury in the front court, because you're already seeing it right now. Kelly's been missing the last couple of games. Apparently he's got a back issue. You know what? We'll see sort of how he's going to be playing, because he was actually playing really well in the first couple of games before he started being sidelined. And, of course, Jakob is so important. Whenever Jakob's on the court, I think the Raptors actually achieve a really, really great level of stability that they can operate out of. But ultimately, those are the guys that the Raptors are kind of deciding between, and it's not easy. The only thing is, I don't think Jamarcus Ramsey acquitted himself well today. I think he was certainly very, very he just had an off night. Offensively, when he had to create, when he made the reach to create, there wasn't there. He wasn't getting the results. There's one play where he slowed down a fast break. And to be fair to him, it was the end of the third quarter, and the shot clock was turned off. So slowing it down to kill the clock is not necessarily a bad thing, but the Raptors did have a break, and he just completely killed that. Then held the ball for the entire 15 seconds and took a pull-up three that was nowhere close to going in. That didn't help. And then defensively, he was also part of the reason why Boston came back, because he just could not contain the speed of J.D. Davidson, who in the previous two games, between this one and the previous one, hadn't been hurting the Raptors, because I thought Jamal Shead and Davion Mitchell did a really good job of guarding the ball against him. But he was able to get past Jamarcus a couple of times. So for me, Jamarcus is unfortunately really, really not in the mix here based on what happened tonight. But I think you could go with any of those three guys. I think Carlson is an athletic point guard who provides a little bit more offense, probably more offense right now than either one of Jamal Shead or Davion Mitchell, honestly, if I had to guess. Jamison Battle's the best shooter in that group. That's not even close. And then Bruno is the biggest body. I don't know which way they're going to ultimately go. I think the reports are that they're closest to getting Bruno in, but, I mean, you can't be too attached to that idea, because I do think that they found something here with Jamison, and I think he's done a really good job every time the Raptors have thrown him out there, whether it's Summer League or in preseason. So, ultimately, this is a really fun game. I would have loved to talk longer about this, but, I don't even know if how the audio is going to turn out based on sort of the show in the background here. Shouts to Jamal McGlure, but damn, it's quite loud on the in-game arena here. So I'm just going to go to the 3 stars. It is still just Summer League, so I'm going to calm down a little bit. But this was really a fun game. I'm almost ashamed to say how excited I am in preseason, but damn, this is an exciting preseason game. Your 3 stars from this performance. The first star, I'm going to give it to Scottie Barnes, 26 points, 9 rebounds, 10 assists, hit 5 threes, 10 of 17 from the field. Again, like I said, it's the maturity, the fight to get through that frustrating moment, because we've seen Scottie tap out of games. And I'm not saying he's someone who's going to quit on the game. That's way too far. But what I'm saying is it took him that timeout after that, complaining about the call and then him turning into a turnover. He snapped back instantly, and the competitiveness, the fact that he's leading this team. If he doesn't do it, no one will. He's Frodo Baggins this season. You know what I mean? He's got to be the one carrying this group. And when he locks in and he plays out super aggressive, you can see how much the rest of the team feeds off of him, because he's a great passer. I mean, honestly, Scottie could have had 15 assists today based on how well he was passing the ball. It just so happened the other guys couldn't knock it down other than Gradey, but he did a great job on both ends, and I loved the way he led. Those are the small moments I'm going to be watching for all season, not just the big box score numbers, because I've seen him do 26, 10, and 9, but can I see him lead and most importantly, by example. And today I saw that from him. So salute to Scottie. Your second star, I'm going to give that to Gradey Dick. 27 points, 6 rebounds, 12 of 21 from the field, 3 of 8 from 3. Here's the thing. Last season, we saw Gradey have so many empty games where he was scoreless. We have single-digit scoring. And the reason for that was if he wasn't knocking on the 3, he wasn't contributing. This is a diversification of his game. For him to find opportunities in transition, which he was also good at in Kansas, to be fair. So I'm not saying that this is a completely new thing. But for him to attack out the corners, for him to hit the mid-range jumpers, for him to finish through contact, all that kind of stuff is a really, really good. The fact that he got 27 points and he only knocked down 3 threes, really impressive, man. I thought he did a really good job being physical. Defensively, there's still more work to be done, because there's one point where Gradey found himself checking Jaylen Brown, and the Raptors are so worried that Scottie came off his man entirely. I think it was Peyton Pritchard, just a hard double, and I think it was a simple swing to Peyton, and Peyton knocked it down for 3. Obviously, that's like bad rotation sort of behind, and maybe that was a bit of freelancing by Scotty. But that does show you that, like, just a mere presence of Gradey having to guard against a star player caused sheer panic and a hard double without actual anything like sort of offering that threat. So with Gradey, the next step is defense. But I do love the fact that he's making the impact offensively. Like, this is probably the most explosive and most decisive and confident that we've ever seen from Gradey as a pro. And I know it's just preseason, but this is, I'm talking across summer league, preseason, last season, whatever. Like, this was by far, his most complete and aggressive overall outing. The way he scored tonight was really beautiful to see. And again, it's like a peek into the future. Can he find this more consistently? And can he have this sort of like outburst scoring more consistently? Go Raptors. Thank you. All right, wrap up the event. All right, your third star. It's hard to pick on this one because I really liked what Ochai did. I really like what Jakob Poeltl did. I really like what Davion Mitchell. Basically, I like the whole starting five tonight. If I had to go with one, I'd probably go with Jakob. 15 points, 16 rebounds, including 4 offensive, 4 assists as well, 6 of 8 from the field, 3 of 3 from the foul line. Hey, number one, 3 of 3 from the foul line. I will take that all the time from Jakob. He's still shooting that one-handed push shot. I mean, it's probably still going to be like a 50-60% proposition. So, like, whatever. But, Jakob, I thought tonight was just so steady. Whenever he's available, he sets great screens. He creates the space. But also, they were playing through him in the post today. I thought he did a good job directing traffic. He just does a great job playing off of all the guys. And then defensively, you know what? I've seen him get beat for a couple rebounds here against, like, Nehemias Queta in Sunday's game. Today, Luke Cornett beat him for a couple rebounds. But, like, ultimately, he does bring a level of stability on the defensive end. Guys just weren't going to the rim as easily, or there weren't the lanes to get to the rim because he was in great positions today defensively. So it's not a breaking news to say Jakob Poeltl is a very good player, and he's a very stabilizing force for the Raptors. But, like, he has a huge, huge impact on what goes on, and I thought he did a great job tonight. Your Gerald Henderson Award winner for who randomly torched Toronto. Harder to pick today because it wasn't nearly the same situation as last time. Probably going to go with J.D. Davidson just based on his scoring towards the end there. 12 points on 3 of 3 shooting, 2 of 2 from 3, including a super contested 3 to force a tie at one point, and then 4 or 5 from the foul line. His one missed free throw actually ended up being the difference in this game, so, thanks for that. But still, he was really dangerous, and he did a really good job. And then your most important guy, and I'm so happy to say this because I've been giving this to Jamal Shead every game because Jamal Shead has been going out and earning that every game. Most important guy today, defensively especially, Branden Carlson. Game, situation, Raptors up 1. Boston decided not to call timeout. They had 1 left, so I honestly salute, Joe Mazzulla for not using that timeout and just saying, yo, it's preseason with my third stringers. Go out there, get a bucket. If not, whatever. Like, who cares? And so Boston runs their offense. I think it was Jordan Walsh who was able to turn the corner on a dribble handoff and go strong to the cup. And it was Branden Carlson getting up super, super high, like well above the rim. He's a 7-footer. He's on a 2-way contract. He's an undrafted rookie. He played 5 years at Utah with a gap year as well due to COVID. So, like, he's already 25 years old. He's older than Emmanuel Quickly, but he's a rookie. He finally gets in for the last 2 minutes because Bruno Fernando was in foul trouble, and quite frankly, he was always a little slow to rotate at the rim. And the most important play defensively, he gets up there, he blocks the shot super high above the rim, and the whole first off, the game is over, Raptors win, and to see the whole Raptors bench mob him, that's awesome. Those are precious moments in life. And I know it's just preseason, and I know it's just a guy on a 2-way contract, but I don't know. Like, you got to love it. You got to love it. And Branden Carlson, for a guy who played 2 minutes, made the biggest defensive play of the game. And I'm really happy for him. We'll see sort of where, again, like his development takes him. For all these guys, there's so much uncertainty. There's so many new faces. All these guys, you don't know if they're even going to eventually play or not, where they're going to play, how they're adjusting life-wise. You didn't see Always Shamshay today. The game was too close. You didn't see Jacoby Walter. I do hope to see him because he was shooting the ball really nicely, at least from what I was seeing in shoot-around today. And hopefully, that's a sign that he's getting closer to being available. We would love to see him, for example, on Friday or even in the home opener, should he ever get into the rotation that quickly. But these guys, I mean, even Bruce Brown I saw came out, obviously he came off surgery, so I don't think he should rush anything. But at the same time, even he was involved, and even he was, I just think that the team is trying to work collectively here. And whatever, the first half against Boston was super harrowing, seeing how empty their offense was in terms of guys not being able to score against the Wizards of all people. In Game 2 was like not great. But this is preseason, and we know this is a long task. There's no point in bearing down on how bad it looks at times because we know that this thing is not promised to be ready just yet. But, like, in these moments where you get to sort of, like, look at what's being cooked here, you know, taste the little mixture a little bit and just see the, like, yo, what Gradey did tonight, what Scotty did tonight, what, you know, these other young guys, even Ochai, who I thought had a really productive game, did tonight. That could be the future if they work hard towards it and they stay focused on the task. And whatever, it's going to be an uphill battle the whole season. But as long as you give me that type of effort, as long as you give me that type of performance, as long as you see the team mob each other, and like Scotty sprinting over to pick up Gradey. Like Scotty there was one play where he was like at half court and Gradey fell over. I think he was trying to take a charge or something. He got knocked over, gets called for a foul. Scotty runs in from literally half court to try to pick him up. Like that kind of stuff. Like I love that. I love that shit. And I would love to see more of that this season. So, again, apologies for all the noise. It's what happens when you're recording live, you know, in an open arena setting. Obviously, you know, when the Raptors are on the road, I'll be able to stream live from my home. It'll be a lot more quiet than this. But I hope you can feel the excitement that I got from being here today. And I hope, honestly, if you missed this game, go watch the highlights, man. You can't tell me you don't get excited about Gradey or Scotty after you see what you saw here today. And it's just preseason. I can't stress that enough. But Boston, they were playing Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Those guys are playing the fourth quarter. Derek White's playing the fourth quarter. This is their last preseason game, so they're trying to tune up. And the Raptors came out and they handled their business. I literally have no complaints. And by the way, when the Celtics starters came out and also when the Raptors starters came out, Raps were up by like 10. So I'm not trying to, like, you know, brag off of that. It's still preseason. I got some shame, but not too much shame, not to be too excited. So thanks everyone for listening to the Hello and Welcome podcast. If you enjoyed this, please make sure you go and subscribe to the Hello and Welcome channel on YouTube. You hit the subscribe button. You hit the notification button. We will let you know whenever we drop, which will be 3 times a week with the weekly shows, myself and Alex Wong. We're going to get exclusive interviews. We're going to get you the post-game show, which will stream live most games. Obviously, sometimes I got to be here at the arena, and I can't be streaming from the arena. You know what I mean? But, like, still, we're going to get you post-game shows after every game. And, you know, all we really ask for is that you subscribe, that you comment, that you leave your likes, your feedback. Did you like the show? Did you not like the show? Who did you like from the game? Most importantly, you know what I mean? And, of course, if you're listening on the podcast, find us on Apple Podcasts, find us on Spotify, rate us, review us. We're back for the season. You're going to get like 7 episodes a week. Jerome is going to be crying at how much work he has to do. But, yeah, this was exciting. And I'm now officially very excited to see what the next Raptors game looks like, which will take place on Friday in Brooklyn. So thanks everyone for listening. This has been the Hello and Welcome podcast presented by Betway. I've been your host, Will Lou, and we'll catch you at the next game.